Look at the last time you cried. Maybe it was grief, maybe it was joy, maybe you don't even remember why, just that the tears came anyway. Now consider this. No other primate on Earth does this. Not chimpanzees, not gorillas, not a single one of our closest relatives sheds tears from emotion. In the entire animal kingdom, only humans cry because they feel something, and for decades, scientists couldn't agree on why. The answer isn't really about sadness at all. It's about something far stranger, and it will change the way you think about every tear you've ever cried. Let's separate two things that get confused constantly. There's reflex tears, the ones triggered by cutting an onion or getting sand in your eye. Nearly every land animal with eyes produces those. That's simple lubrication and irritant defense. Then there's emotional tears, the ones triggered by grief, joy, frustration, even overwhelming beauty. And that second category appears to be almost entirely unique to humans. Elephants have been observed with wet eyes near dying companions. Dogs' eyes can water under stress. But controlled studies looking for actual emotionally triggered tear production, the kind linked to feeling rather than physical irritation, have not confirmed it in any other species. Humans stand alone. So why would evolution build something so seemingly pointless? Crying doesn't help you run faster. It doesn't help you fight. In the middle of the African savanna, blurred vision and a wet face would seem like exactly the wrong adaptation to survive on. A predator doesn't wait for you to finish sobbing. So researchers went looking for an explanation, and what they found reshapes the entire question. The first clue came from chemistry. In the 1980s, biochemist William Fry ran an experiment that seemed almost too simple. He collected emotional tears from volunteers watching sad films and separately collected reflex tears from the same volunteers chopping onions. Then he compared them under analysis. The two liquids were not the same. Emotional tears contained significantly higher levels of stress hormones, including ACTH-related compounds, along with natural painkillers called leucine and kephalin. Your body was not just leaking water, it was actively flushing out stress chemicals through your face. Crying wasn't a symptom of emotion, it was a mechanism, a literal release valve for the nervous system. But that still doesn't explain why it needed to be visible. A release valve could work internally. Why does it have to show on your face where every other creature nearby can see it? This is where the story stops being about biochemistry and starts being about something evolutionary biologists call an honest signal. In the animal kingdom, communication is cheap and easy to fake. A dog can put on a submissive posture without actually feeling submissive. A primate can display strength it doesn't fully have. But some signals are expensive or difficult to fake, and those signals become trustworthy precisely because faking them costs too much. Emotional tears may be exactly this kind of signal. You cannot easily produce them on command. Try right now to cry without thinking of anything sad. Almost impossible. That difficulty is the entire point. Around 400,000 to 300,000 years ago, early humans were living in increasingly complex social groups larger than almost any primate group before them. Survival no longer depended only on individual strength. It depended on cooperation, on trust, on knowing who in the group would actually help you when things went wrong. And that created a new evolutionary problem. How do you know if someone's distress is real? A faked cry for help wastes the group's resources. A real cry for help ignored can mean death. Populations that developed a hard-to-fake signal for genuine distress, one difficult to produce voluntarily, gained a critical advantage. Group members could trust the signal, helpers weren't investing in fakers, and real suffering got real support. Here's where the story gets genuinely strange. Emotional tears also physically impair you, they blur vision, they're wet and visible from a distance. In a species obsessed with survival, this appears to be a disadvantage that evolution kept anyway, and researchers now think that impairment might be the entire feature, not a flaw. Psychologist Oren Hassan proposed something called the appeasement and bonding hypothesis. Crying, by blurring your vision and signaling vulnerability, effectively tells the group, I am not a threat, and I need you. It's the opposite of a display of strength. And in a highly social species that depends on cooperation to survive, needing others visibly and non-threateningly may have been just as valuable as looking strong. There's more evidence buried in the biology itself. Tears trigger a measurable physiological response in the people who witness them, not just the person crying. Studies using facial recognition scans found that people rate a crying face as more in need of support and less aggressive than the exact same face with the tears digitally removed. The tears themselves are doing the communicating. Without them, viewers couldn't reliably read the same emotional state from the face alone. That means the tear itself, the physical liquid on the skin, carries information the face muscles alone cannot express. Now here's the piece that connects everything back to the beginning. Human infants can't speak, can't gesture meaningfully, can't explain what's wrong. But newborns cry and adults respond to that crying with an almost involuntary urgency. Some researchers argue that adult emotional tears may have evolved from this infant signaling system, extended into adulthood as human social bonds grew more complex. The same wiring that made a caregiver rush toward a crying infant may be the same wiring that makes you feel compelled to comfort a crying friend decades later. It's not a coincidence that tears from either source trigger nearly identical instinctive responses in bystanders. And this may explain something else entirely, why humans cry from joy, not just sadness. If crying were purely a distress signal, tears of happiness make no sense. But if crying is fundamentally about overwhelming, unprocessed emotional intensity, a nervous system pushed past its regulatory capacity, then joy, grief, awe, and relief all qualify. Reunions after long separations, weddings, the birth of a child, moments of overwhelming beauty. All of these produce emotional tears because the trigger was never sadness specifically. The trigger is emotional intensity that exceeds what the nervous system can quietly contain. Which brings us to something modern science still hasn't fully resolved. Why did this trait appear in humans specifically, and not in chimpanzees or bonobos, our nearest relatives, who share almost 99% of our DNA and live in complex social groups of their own? The honest answer is researchers don't fully know. Some point to the unusually long dependency period of human infants, requiring far more sustained caregiver attention than any other primate offspring. Others point to the sheer scale of human cooperative groups, far larger and more interconnected than chimpanzee troops, creating stronger pressure for trustworthy emotional signaling. Both explanations circle the same idea. Somewhere in the last several 100,000 years, human social complexity crossed a threshold that made an honest, hard-to-fake distress signal worth more than the vision it costs you in the moment. So the next time tears come and you can't explain exactly why, understand what's actually happening. Your body is not malfunctioning. It's running a communication system older than language itself, one that evolved specifically because it couldn't be faked, precisely so the people around you would know your feeling was real. Every animal on Earth can express pain. Only you can prove it. Also, if you enjoyed this video, make sure to like and subscribe so you never miss out on a stick speech again.